even if you feel that you did nothing wrong, you never know what that person might have heard or might have taken from what you said or what you would have done that maybe made them feel like they can't forgive you as well. So there's an aspect of forgiving yourself. More importantly, being able to forgive others is one of the main drivers. It came to a point where I was like, man, is this even worth it? And I spoke to my good friend. He told me, he looked at me and said, there's two people in life, and that's the people that let things just pass by them and don't do anything about them. And then there's a second person that goes and gets what he wants. So which one are you going to be? You're going to be the person that lets this guy do something that's wrong and unjust and just let it pass by? Or are you going to go and get justice?
In your darkest moments or lowest times, what is something that you always remember or look back on to help you remember that life is worth pursuing?
Then that's a deep one. And something that I can speak on that's helped me is...
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Mindset Journaling Podcast. My name is Vincent. I'm your host for today. Here we deep dive into the unique mindsets of our incredible guests, uncovering insights and experiences that will help inspire you and elevate your mindset. Today we are joined by a good friend of mine, Hammad.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show, Hammad.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
No worries. So we knew each other for quite some time, since elementary school.
Yeah.
All right. I've been thinking a lot about this recently on forgiveness. Do you think forgiveness plays a role in your inner peace, being calm?
Totally. I think that, there's an aspect of forgiving yourself for, we all make mistakes and we all do things that we maybe regret at some point, but being able to forgive yourself for that. But I think more importantly, being able to forgive others is one of the main drivers of peace.
How do we forgive others?
I think that, sometimes we do feel like there's things that somebody's done or that a group of people have done that have impacted us in a way that we can't heal from. And so we tell ourselves that we can't heal from that and that what they did is unforgivable. So I think that for me personally, when it comes to forgiving somebody, I really listen to my thoughts on what I'm saying when I think about that person or that group of people, whatever it may be. And if I'm constantly saying something like, hey, that what they did is unforgivable, or I can't forgive them, I think that's negatively coaching myself. I'm telling myself that I can't do that. Same way as, hey, if you continuously tell yourself, man, I can't wake up at 7 a.m. in the morning, I can't do it. And you continuously tell yourself, I can't do it, can't wake up at 7 a.m., I can't do it. It's not going to happen. You're going to tell yourself you can't do it. You're going to, 9 times out of 10, you probably won't wake up at 7 a.m. ever. Right? So
This guy's describing me.
So, hey, no. So I think part of it is, hey, I could wake up at 7 a.m. Not a challenge. I just got to sleep at 10. I'll wake up. I could do it. I could totally wake up at 7 a.m. And you tell yourself that. And eventually you wake up at 7 a.m., man. Like, I'm speaking for myself. That's something that I know that's happened to me. And so similarly, it's like constantly telling yourself, man, I can't forgive that person. Mm-hmm. I can't forgive that. That's unforgivable.
Is forgiveness more on you or about them or both?
Yeah, we see it in movies all the time. We learned it when we were younger, and there's a matter of being the bigger person sometimes.
Yeah.
And being able to be that bigger person, it goes a long way. Even if, you feel that you did nothing wrong, you never know what that person might have heard or might have taken from what you said or what you would have done.
Yeah.
That maybe made them feel like they can't forgive you as well.
Mm-hmm. So
part of it is being the bigger person, but also not being stubborn. So, I'm being stubborn when I say I can't forgive somebody. It's like, I'm not going to do it. And so you have to identify yourself being stubborn as well. And so, hey, I'm not going to be stubborn. And there is that little thread that says I can forgive this person. I would pull on that thread. Mm-hmm. And I'll try, because it's going to bring you peace, man. And you never know how far that could go for somebody else.
Would you also tie in forgiveness and acceptance? Because how I view forgiveness is you're accepting the fact that it did happen and there's nothing else you can do about it. Mm-hmm. Right? So in that case scenario, can you forgive someone who's done you terribly wrong? I don't know very specific scenario. For example, drunk driving, they caused an accident and they killed some family members. Right? Just for example. Can you forgive that person? And if so, what is it? Are you accepting the fact that it did happen? Are you forgiving them for being drunk? Or are you forgiving yourself for just feeling the way you feel.
Yeah, that's a challenging one, and maybe even a controversial one. And so what I would say is I haven't been in that scenario, and so I can't begin to think of what somebody that went through that is going through and what their thought process for forgiveness might look like. So I could talk about maybe my own scenario where I know that I was successful with forgiveness, and it was with a friend of mine that really broke my heart. And so, with that being said, at first, there's stages to grief as well. We spoke about this before, right? So, do you remember the stages to grief? What were they again?
Oh,
It ends at acceptance.
this first one, denial's up there, right?
Denial's up there. So, first, it's like this can't be happening to me, and then there's that why me, and then there's that revenge. I want to get him back for that, or I want to get her back for that.
Yeah.
But then eventually with time, again, that's where this all loops into patience. Humanity, I think, as a whole is in loss unless you're patient. I think you have to be patient because there's nothing you could do that's going to expedite something that's supposed to happen 8 months from now. You have to be patient, but you're going to be eluded by that idea if you continuously think about it until that thing happens 8 months from now. So you have to be patient, and you have to have faith in yourself and faith that it's gonna happen. Being patient is a big thing. But when it comes to forgiving, I think it starts with accepting the fact that this is something that bothered you, and this is something that maybe broke your heart. It's taking you it's taking up a huge amount of brain space in your conscious. But it comes to a point where you, like we said before, you want to keep progressing. Life is really short. We always talk about that. Everybody knows it. Life is short. Do you want to spend that short life continuously thinking about that conflict you had with that person, or what that person did and how that affected your life in the past? Or do you want to sort of move forward and continue to new challenges and new horizons? And so if you're going to continuously think about how that person wronged you or how that group of people wronged you, I think that's, again, taking those steps back rather than moving forward. And so you have to come to that point where it's, you've accepted that this is something that went wrong. And you've practiced forgiveness and you forgive them. And you can go to them and say it. You forgive them. Not expecting them to forgive you back. You seek their forgiveness. Hey, do you forgive me as well? You let them know that I've completely forgiven you. And then from there you move forward. And in the case that relationship isn't mended and it's still a bad relationship, like, for example, it's still a relationship that isn't going to progress. You've forgiven them, they've forgiven you, but it's probably never going to be the same again. I rely on that 5 principles that I mentioned.
The 5 steps?
If they sneeze, I'm going to say bless you. If you get sick, family gets sick, I'm going to come visit you. If you say hello, I'm going to say hello. If you seek my advice, I'm going to give you my advice and my most honest and my best advice I can give you. And when you pass away, you best believe I'm going to be praying for you. I'm going to be at your funeral.
That's beautiful, man.
Yeah. That's at least my thinking behind it.
Hammad, I view you as someone who is very patient, as a very forgiving, someone who has a lot of empathy and understanding towards people. In your life, how do you stay peaceful? How do you stay calm in a world full of chaos, in a world that's always moving, externally and internally?
Yeah. Great question. I think that my personal take on it is taking it one day at a time and being able to sort of not overwhelm yourself. And I think a lot of it comes from being a sponge. And so what I mean by being a sponge is there's all kinds of experiences that everybody has in their life, and you could either let them pass by and not pay a lot of attention, or you can be there and really soak it in. And that's not only the best situations and the best people, but it might be people that perhaps you don't want to be like. Or you see a scenario where somebody's reacting to something in a negative way, and you know that, hey, I don't want to be that person. Or maybe you see yourself in that person sometimes, like, oh, I react like that sometimes. Is that how it looks? And you really reflect on that. So a lot of it is reflection. It's looking on the inside and seeing who am I, and based on the situations that you're in, how have I reacted to that, and how could I maybe make that better? Beyond that, I think that there's also a faith aspect to this, and so my faith, certainly it revolves around peace, and so there's also that self-reminder that you want to maintain peace, not only within yourself, but you want to guide others to peace too, or you want to bring others to peace as well.
How does that peace look like?
I think to me, peace goes in two categories. I think there's peace in situations, and then there's peace with people. And with me, I think that maybe we can branch out into people. With people, it heavily relies on empathy, being able to sit in their shoes and understand that the things that they're saying, whether positive or negative, are a reflection of what's going on inside them. And so if somebody's being rude or acting awful, oftentimes it's just a reflection of what's going on in their hearts or on the inside, and being empathetic towards that. And so if somebody's being awful, I'm not going to respond in an awful way. I'm going to understand that this person's maybe going through something right now or has gone through something in his past, and you want to be conscious and empathetic towards their scenario, and you don't want to let their attitude affect your peace. So that's people, right? Beyond that, there's obviously people that you can't shut out. So the stranger on the street that made me angry, chances are that I probably won't see him again. But what about when your mom makes you angry? What about when a cousin or a friend makes you angry? And these are long-term relationships, again, that you don't want to cut off. Your heart, when you're really angry, could say something like, hey, I don't ever want to talk to you again, right? I don't know, have you ever said that to your mom or your friend? Hey, I'm never talking, like as a child, obviously, right?
In the moment, because you're so heated, you just want to get something out there. You want to express who you are.
Exactly. So, that's a different relationship. But what about a friend, right? A friend that's close to you. So there's also a conversation about cutting people off. So it's like, hey, I'm going to cut you off. Don't talk to me anymore. Never going to talk to you again. Don't reach out to me. I personally don't believe in that. I think that relationships are, people need people. And I think that if you've met somebody, it doesn't make sense to cut that relationship off entirely.
So how do you navigate? How do you filter between which relationship you choose to, for example, prioritize, deepen the relationship, or some relationships that you take a step back, you distance yourself from?
I think that when it comes to deciding what relationships I want to filter out, my basis from fruition of, understanding what a relationship is has always been that I want to keep relationships long term. And the way that oftentimes I find my relationships being long term with people that are long term people are often when people are doing more for them, for me, that I'm doing for them. And likewise, I'm in the mindset of doing more for them than they're doing for me. And so it's almost like you're surrounding yourself with givers, not takers, right? And so my friend and I were once talking about this, and we were talking about how we want to raise our kids, when we have kids, to be givers and not takers. And so there's nothing wrong with taking, of course. It comes to a point where, you take advice, or, you take valuable items, whatever the case is. But you want to be of the mindset to give as much as possible. And so for me, when it comes to people that I see myself being around long term, it's people that are willing to give more than they're willing to take. And it reciprocates. So I'm always going to try to give as much value as I can and not expect anything back.
For those people who are closer to you, maybe very long-term friends, maybe family, brother, sister, parents, cousins, there are certainly some people in our lives that aren't good for us, or they don't value what we value, right? They don't see the same. We don't align in terms of whatever we see as fit. How do people who have, for example, brothers, sisters, 10-year relationships, parents, how do they take a step back from letting the, I guess you would say, toxic or negative relationship affect them? Or how do you do it in a safe way?
Right. That's a great question. I think that that's something that lots of people might struggle with as well. I've seen success in this, and so I'll share sort of how I do it, but this is subject to everybody's opinion and where their values align. But for me, I follow sort of a 5-step process. So somebody that, of course, a brother, you don't want to cut ties with that entirely. That's your brother, and so, or a really good friend from childhood. These are relationships that are very valuable and they're very important. But obviously, sometimes, like you said, there are situations or instances where it might not be healthy for you to keep them around or close. And so with that being said, I follow the step of, one, if you seek advice, I'll give you advice, and I won't back away. I'll give you honest advice. If you say hello, of course I'm going to respond. I'm going to say hello. If you're sick, I'm going to come visit you. Or if somebody that you love, your family, they're sick, I'm going to come visit. If you sneeze, I'm going to say bless you, right?
Okay.
And when you pass away, I'm certainly going to visit, and I'm going to pray for you. And so sometimes it's not you. It's not like, you could apologize or you could try to mend relationships, but they don't mend because of stubbornness, because of ego, and there's so much stuff that stops relationships from thriving and rebuilding. But when you've exhausted all avenues of trying to rebuild that relationship, I think that 5-step is solid, because you're still keeping your genuine intention to, or genuine love for the person.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you're not exhausting yourself and trying to mend something that maybe won't eventually mend, and it's going to be mentally exhausting long term.
Yeah,
try to do that. And
it's,
I think that's my way of approaching it.
It's hard too, because I see a lot of people in their lives have, for example, toxic relationships or relationships that don't serve who they are currently, right? Because we all grow, we all learn, we all make new friends, we just grow into who we want to become, right? And sometimes we still keep the same friends or we let them go. I've seen so many people still hold on to the same friend groups, the same people's opinions that still hold them back to who they were 5-10 years ago. That might not apply to who they are today, right? And it is kind of sad sometimes because, for example, you were once this person and you became friends with this person, but now you're a totally different person. And now where you're trying to go, your friend might not want you to go or pull you back.
Yeah.
Right. So I've seen relationships or people sometimes where the people they associate themselves with actually hold them back, or they're not in the right group.
Yeah.
So that's just something I wanted to relate to on that part.
Yeah, I think that I think that if the entire world were to understand, we wouldn't have a lot of the conflicts that we do. And I think that's status and that's jealousy, right? So leaders are like, hey, why does that leader have a higher status than me? I'm going to do whatever it takes to achieve a higher status than them. Or people get hurt by, status or get jealous by some things that, others might accomplish. And I think that the important takeaway from these situations is, one, like you said, it's important on who you surround yourself with. And if you're surrounding yourself with people that are often looking at others' status or speaking of jealousy,
Mm-hmm.
and beyond that, speaking of negative things in general, it's probably an indication that you might want to distance yourself from that conversation. And there's, to an extent, you can control that narrative. So sometimes, and it's tough. I'm not, just because my friend's talking about, hey, this negative thing is going on, I'm not going to be like, okay, I'm not your friend anymore, I'm going home. Can't. It's not realistic. But I think it's important to guide your friend groups and those that are close to you to have more positive conversations and call them out when the conversation is going in the direction that might not be productive.
How do you shift your mindset to think that way? Because it's human nature to always, I guess, be greedy, always compare ourselves. I know I have a hard time. I'm trying better. I'm being better at not comparing myself to others. But how do you shift your mindset to instantly be like, oh, let me not compare my success to their success. Let me not compare where I am to where they are, but rather enjoy or take in life.
Yeah. And I think that's something that everybody, I think humans might even be wired to want, instinctually want more than others.
Mm-hmm.
More food, better shelter, whatever the case may be. But I think that, again, it comes to coaching yourself. Being able to tell yourself that, and, setting your own hard goals. Because by the time, for example, if I'm thinking about my own goals and I'm thinking about where I want to go, whether it be with my life, whether it be spirituality, with my family, etc., if that's all I'm thinking about, and I'm thinking about growing that, the person that's thinking about me, jealous of the things that I'm doing, isn't spending their time thinking about that for themselves. And so that's where it's like, you have your trajectory and you focus on your trajectory and your hard goals, and you're going to progress. But the more time you sort of look at another person and where they're going, I think that's where you're going to sort of stay stagnant and potentially even go backwards a few steps.
Backwards.
It could, right? So it's really important to set goals, know where you're heading, and really be on that mission and not get distracted by your peers or the people around you that are sort of excelling and having that jealousy or that status conflict within yourself. And it's a constant reminder, and it could be a constant reminder, but over time you coach yourself to be that person. And you focus on your own goals, and all of a sudden your goals and your ambitions or your trajectory is the most important thing to you, and it's the most entertaining thing to you. It's the most interesting thing to you, rather than somebody else's trajectory or what's on their plate, right? There's a saying, it's like, a food on somebody else's plate won't fill your stomach, right? So you got to go and get it. I think that's what it is, and it's also a part of that is having the conversations with your friends, right? And so if your friends are all talking about their own goals and their own ideas, that's also going to feed into that trajectory. So I think to tie it all together and to come full circle, it's really being focused on what you want for yourself,
on your journey,
what you want for your life, and what that goal really looks like. And beyond that, bringing others and coaching others around you to also think in a similar manner, where you're guiding others to positivity and guiding others to truth, rather than guiding others to negativity and speaking on negativity and feeding into that. So I think that's the most important concept.
No, yeah, definitely focusing on yourself, your journey. That's been a major thing that I've been trying to focus on or be more aware of, because I grew up in an Asian household. I don't know how it's like in your household, but we're always comparing, or parents are always comparing you to other people, cousins, brothers, families, etc. And then it makes you feel like not good, in a sense, right? Always being compared, always wanting to do better than this person, etc., etc. And growing up, that really feeds into, I guess, one, my competitiveness, but two, always being aware of or not being grateful for what I have right now, and not being patient enough to accept the fact that I'm on my journey. We all have our own pace, but it's okay to move slower than someone. It's okay to not have as much wealth, fame, etc., the cars than this person, because you're on your own path, you're on your own pace, right? And that's something I'm trying to focus more on, learn and practice, is having more patience on myself and where I'm going in life.
Yeah, and believing in your path.
Believing in yourself, yeah.
I think that your point of being grateful, that's an important one. And so I think oftentimes lots of folks, they tend to, and I speak for myself first and foremost, they tend to look at social media or people that are doing a lot better than them. I have a Benz and that guy has a Bugatti, or whatever the case. And I think it's important to practice gratefulness and being grateful for the things that you have. And I think one of the ways that I personally do that is I don't think of people that are doing a lot better than me. I think of people that are doing a little less than me. I think about people that are less fortunate. And that really grounds you and that humbles you. And I think practicing that humility and that gratefulness for all of the because man, you can't count how many blessings we have. You can't be grateful enough for everything that we have. Anybody in any situation, if you really reflect on everything that you have in life, you'll be overwhelmed with the kinds of things that you're blessed with.
Yeah, but we always want more. We're always looking at other people's. We always want, it's that greed.
Yeah, and it's important. But you know what? I'll tell you something about myself, where I had a point in time. I'll give you a specific scenario where I was playing basketball. Well, we play basketball too.
Yeah.
But I was playing basketball, and it was a one-on-one. And I remember the thought that crossed my mind. And this day was very important to me. I think about this day a lot. And I remember the thought that crossed my mind when he had the ball and he was dribbling, and he was on his last point, game point, and the game was his. And I remember my thought. And my thought was, if he gets this ball in, what does that mean to me? What does that do for me? Who cares? Right? And he crossed over. My gameplay was I wasn't as tight on defense as I could have been. I sort of let it happen, let it go by, and he scored and he won. And I sort of reflected on that, and I was like, since when am I okay with losing, man? Since when is that Since when is that something that, hey, it's totally okay. Sportsmanship is important.
Yeah.
But my point here is I got really comfortable with the idea that things can just go, things can just flow. And I feel that that's peace, and you're at peace, but at the same time, you do have to have some sort of drive. And I think that your intention to win isn't necessarily to prove that person wrong, but it's to prove to yourself that you're capable of winning as well to a certain extent. So, you want to achieve your goals, and you want to be heavily driven to achieve those goals. And that idea of being okay with losing kind of conflicts with that.
It does, yeah.
Right? And so it was also finding that ground where, look, I want to win, and doing it for the sport's sake of it. Not doing it because I want to beat you. Not doing it because I want you to look like less of a person than me. That's not the idea. The idea is I want to win for the sake of winning.
Yeah.
For the sake of, victory. And so I think that was something that came across my mind. So yeah, you want to be grateful, you want to be grounded, you want to be at peace, but at the same time, you don't want to give up on your goals and aggressively, if anything, chase those goals. To come full circle, it's being grateful, being at peace, being, not reacting to the negative things in life, but at the same time still having that drive and that positive mindset and that competitive point to actually get what you want. Yeah. And not let it just walk by you and not let him just score.
Yeah. When I play a lot of volleyball, so whenever I play sports, in my head, I like to think, okay, I always want to win, of course. Winning feels nice. Winning feels like you said, you're proving yourself that you're capable of doing it, right? You're capable of winning. You have this level of skill to actually achieve, et cetera, right? So how I like to think about it is my mentality going into sports or going into anything is I play to win. I'm not playing not to lose, right? Because you see so many people go into whatever, like sports, for example, if we're using sports, go into a game. I don't know if I'm going to win. I'm not the greatest, but I know I can. I might have the shot, right? That mentality of staying in the middle, it's not I don't want to lose or it's not I don't want to win. It's just I'm playing not to lose, which keeps you in the middle. That keeps you stagnant. And I try to reframe my mindset. Or I try to tell, for example, my teammates are like, "Yo, we're playing to win. We're not playing not to lose, right?" In that mindset of if you're playing to win, then you're actually trying. Then you're actually progressing. You're being more active on what you can do to achieve that victory, achieve that goal, right? But I think so many people just coast in life. Depending on certain circumstances and et cetera that happen in their life, they tend to find a period of comfortability and coast. And that's just a scary thing because then you're just stagnant and you're letting the days, the games, the years pass by you.
Yeah. And the beauty of life, I think, is that's totally okay too. Like it's more, it's more you choose your reality and you choose your narrative. And so when you're in business, for example, there's an emphasis on competition and winning and having that drive and waking up in the morning every morning and really with that mentality to win. A good friend of mine, I'll tell you, he studied software engineering, really smart, really technical, moved to St. Kitts, bought a few Doom buggies, ATVs, and he hosts tourists. And he'll drive tourists around and party with tourists and drive them back, and that's how he makes a living. And, that's totally okay too. Hey, there's probably competition there as well, but he's taking it day by day. And I talked to him, and he's at peace, and he's sort of just going like that. I asked him, hey, how's business? Is it bumping? And he goes, Hammad, I eat every day. So it's not like, hey, it's bumping, I'm making millions. It's more, I'm thriving, man. I'm doing my thing.
Going back to your point on patience, it's hard, especially nowadays, to learn or practice patience. Social media, instant gratification, TikTok, short attention span, etc. The world ever moving so fast and changing. Do you think social media, these days of instant gratification sets unrealistic expectations for success. Makes us less patient, makes us more impatient.
Yeah, I think that lots of folks, and I speak again for myself first and foremost, it's we want everything now. You know, we want entertainment right now. So when I'm on Amazon Prime and that 2 minute ad comes on, I'm like, I think I gotta upgrade this thing. This 2 minute ad is just wasting my 2 minutes. I want to watch my movie, right? So there's that, and then there's scrolling on your phone. There's the TikToks of the world, and there's the Instagrams of the world. And so there's huge conversation, and I think it's a big, big topic on where the world's heading with the instant gratification. When it comes to being patient, I think that what I can speak on that is from my background. I had a point in time where, I was seeing lots and lots of success, and I saw it quick. Business boomed, business grew tremendously, and I did tremendously well that year, and thus, my habits changed. A lot more things were accessible to me very quickly. I could do things very quickly. I could get whatever I want whenever I wanted it. But I was humbled maybe a year or two after that, where business sort of didn't go as well. And from there, it was, how do you go from being that person that sees all that success, that can get whatever he wants at any point, to somebody that needs to sort of take it step at a time and be patient with that. And I think that I remember that the mentality was, man, I'm going to take this thing one day at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Small wins every day, and I'm going to celebrate those wins one day at a time. And so when it went from that, that Hall of Famer mentality to coming to grounds with, hey, these are my cards, and like poker, I'm going to play this card, and I can't change these cards. These are my cards, man. I can either play or I can fold, right? And so these are my cards. I can't change them. I'm going to play these cards the best I can, one day at a time. And so it came with that. It's like, we seek instant gratification. We want instant gratification, but there's a beauty in getting things like the fruit of your labor.
Mm-hmm.
There's a beauty in things growing slowly. It's like keeping plants. They take time to grow, but when they blossom, it's gorgeous. It's the best. It's like miraculous. And no plant's going to just grow like that, right?
Yeah.
Except tulips. They just, in spring, tulips sort of just, all of a sudden there's tulips, right? So
yeah, it's quick, but they also...
They take time. Even tulips take time to grow. So
yeah.
I think in a world of instant gratification, if you could practice being patient and taking things one day at a time, one step at a time, I think that long term there's more pleasure in the outcomes than there is when you instantly get it.
Enjoying the process.
Certainly enjoying the process. And again, I speak for myself first and foremost. This is my opinion. But that's at least how I think about it.
That's a good way to think about it. Take it day by day. That's what I've been trying to do as well. I always focus too much on the future, and I worry too much about the past.
Yeah.
There's nothing I can do for the past. Future is the future. There's things I can do, but it's not my instant problem at this moment.
Yeah.
It's just taking it day by day. What's the next step? What am I going to do tomorrow? There's peace in that.
Yeah, there's definitely a piece. Huh. And so I think it is important to have that 5-year and 10-year mark. But on the day-to-day basis, make sure that you're accomplishing those goals and being sort of celebrating those wins as well, slowly, until that greater goal is achieved. Because one day that day is going to come where it's like, okay, you look down, you've climbed this mountain, you look down, and you're like, okay, I've come pretty far.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like it when you're taking it slow, but it comes to a point where you're like, wow, I'm really proud of where I'm going. And then you build momentum. And momentum is a beautiful thing. I think that for me personally, once that momentum builds, then I get asked questions like, bro, how are you doing that? How are you working so much? Like, are you not getting tired? Are you not getting burnt out? Once you have that momentum, I think that momentum drives you, and it powers through sort of the tired feeling.
Yeah.
And so it's like, 100%. Yeah, you start slow, one day at a time. You take it step by step, day by day, until you have that momentum. And when that momentum builds, then you thrive off that, and you build on that, and you get what you want. Mm. And then, if that momentum ever stops, and, you have to take a break, take a good break, take a vacation, a simple one. It could be up to Collingwood, Blue Mountains, or it could be, go to Italy for a few weeks, whatever's sort of in your arsenal. But take a break and then get back to it.
Yeah.
And get back to building that momentum again.
It's the beauty in enjoying the process, because you don't want to go to a destination. Well, the biggest fear for me, one of my biggest fears is going to my destination, reaching my destination, my goals, my dreams, ambition, and just looking back and forgetting or not understanding the path that I took to get there. It's getting to the destination, but I have no journey with it.
Yeah.
It's like waking up one day and I'm rich, but it doesn't make a difference because there's no emotion to that. There's no journey. There's no story. There's no experience to say. I just woke up and I won $1 million. Like,
Yeah. We're talking about having that ambition and being able to take it day by day and just getting what you want, setting those goals, and not looking at anybody else. But I think that it is important to consider looking at others. And what I mean by that is you got to look at your neighbors. You got to look at, the less fortunate. You got to look at maybe your family members that aren't doing too well. So don't overindulge in your process, but along the way also see where you could help out and contribute to others, because that gives it purpose. That gives your success purpose too.
yeah.
Because you're taking others with you, rather than, hey, like, this is my path, and this is my path, and I'm not going to look at anything except my path. But I think that there are little stops along the way where you look at your neighbors and make sure your neighbors are doing okay. And the neighbor doesn't have to be your house neighbor. It doesn't have to be the guy that lives next to you or in the condo. It could be the guy that's in the cubicle next to you or the office next to you. It could be the guy that that you're on the train with.
Just anybody.
It could be anybody that's your neighbor, right? And really look out for folks genuinely along the way. And I think that that's also important. It gives you more purpose in what you're doing, and I think that it gives you more gratification long term.
Do you think being at peace, being calm, sort of kills your motivation or lowers your ambition, drive in life?
Yeah, I think that question makes me think about this scenario in my life where, I had a gentleman sell me my first car, and I later found out that he messed with the odometer, and so the kilometers on the car were adjusted to be less to drive the value of the car up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, terrible. Very awful thing to do to somebody.
How did you find out?
You can find out. There's ways you look at. In Canada, we have this thing called record of ownership record.
Okay.
So in Canada, we have an ownership record where you could see, when the car was serviced or when ownership was changed and what kilometers that car was at when ownership was changed. And so I saw like a jump from 250,000 kilometers registered on the car, and then when it was moved to another owner, it was 150,000. Somebody moved it $100,000.
That is crazy.
And the guy I bought it off was actually a gentleman that moved the he took the paper from somebody and just did a paper flip, like paper change. So he was a ghost. Anyways, to come full circle, it was a story where I had to go and sue this person, right? Hey man, like, you sold me a faulty car, and there's no way that I'm just gonna let that happen. And I remember it came to a point where I was like, man, is this even worth it? It's like 3 days left, all this like court appearance and all this. There's going to be a whole story, and I don't know if that's even worth my time right now. And I spoke to my good friend, and he's a paralegal. He's been in the game for a little while, and he looked at me, he said, Hammad, listen, there's two kinds of people in this world. And he said this, and obviously you take things from people and you make them sort of work with what you believe in.
Personalize it.
And
yeah.
so I wouldn't say that this is how I think, but this is something that was powerful that he said to me. And he said, there's two people in life, and that's people that let things just pass by them and don't do anything about them. And then there's a second person that goes and gets what he wants. So which one are you going to be? You're going to be the person that lets this guy do something that's wrong and unjust and just let it pass by? Or are you going to go and get justice? Or are you going to go and try to and get what you want and get what you think you deserve? And I remember that was a turning point where it's like, I was at peace with it. I was like, hey, like, it is what it is. It's not worth the struggle. It's not worth the pain.
Mm-hmm.
I'm good. But there's also that aspect where when there's justice involved, or when there's something that means something to you involved, for me that meant I'm going to be that person that gets what he wants. I want to be in that category. And so that's what it meant something to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I did was I pursued it, and I ended up obviously winning. But beyond that, I think that it's the same story with that basketball story that I mentioned before.
Would you say it's also what you value more?
Yeah, it comes with the value. You have to really decide what means something to you. You have to have values, because there's that saying where somebody that
Everything stands for nothing
will fall for anything.
Oh.
Right? So you have to stand for something. You have to have your values, and your values align with what you do on a daily basis and how you react and interact. And so I think it comes down to that value basis. And so from there, it's also being focused on picking and choosing your battles as well very keenly. And so not everything is a battle that you want to fight. So, you have an argument with somebody, that a stranger, for example, is that a battle that you want to pursue and think about long term? Is that something that you want to fight there? Versus, a battle like an argument with a spouse or a mother. That's a battle that's important. You should probably figure out and remediate that because it matters, right?
In your darkest moments or lowest times, what is something that you always remember or look back on to help you remember that life is worth pursuing?
Damn, that's a deep one. And I think that there's lots and lots of things that people rely on, and something that I can speak on that's helped me is, I do things that I did when I was younger that made me happy. So there used to be this drink. It was called Chubby. You remember Chubby?
Oh my God, yes.
Yes, Chubby's that little baseball-shaped soda, right? And I used to love going to that local grocery store and convenience store and picking that up and drinking it. And that used to give me so much joy when I was a kid. And so what I do in my darkest times or when I'm facing adversity is, I like to lean on things that maybe I enjoyed when I was younger. And that brings kind of different happiness, different kind of contentment into my life. And so I obviously can't do that every day. Can't go and get a Chubby every day, because then it might take away from the volume or the weight that holds for me. But beyond that, it's spending time with people. There was a study done generally on a few rats, and it was a study on addiction, and it was like they put a drug into the water, and when the rat was alone, he drank from it. But when they put a bunch of rats together, no one really touched that water. And so I sort of flew over that story. There's obviously a study has certain hypotheses, and it can be a lot deeper than that. But generally, my point being is, when facing adversity and when facing challenges, be humble and have the humility to ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to people around you. Talk to people that mean something to you. And, that can go a long way. And that's why I mentioned before, too, that you take care of your neighbors. Because at some point, you never know. Those neighbors will take care of you, too, right? And so really have faith and know that, this life is going to continue to progress, and what's coming to you will come. And so everyone has their path. And, we have our paths. Being grateful for what we have, not looking at anyone else's cards, really playing our cards correctly, and having faith that this thing is going to pan out, and being patient through that adversity. I think that's what really gets you out of it. And eventually you're going to get out of it. And so, there's that saying, this too shall pass, right? And this too shall pass. When you're having a great time, man, it's going to pass. When you're having a terrible time, when you're having an awful time, that's going to pass as well. You just have to keep your head up. You got to get through it, right?
Right.
And have faith. So that's my 2 cents on that.
That's a nice one.
Yeah.
Final questions. You ready?
Yeah, let's go for it.
If you could sum up everything that you learned along your journey in just one sentence, what would it be?
I think that if I were to sum up everything along my journey into one sentence, it would be: embrace being fluid, but also carve out your own path based on your own organic ideas.
Mm-hmm.
But just because somebody that means something, somebody that I look up to says something, doesn't mean that I live by that. You got to carve out your own theory, or carve out your own organic path, and live by that. And so I think that my whole life, has been being a sponge and listening to what folks have to say, and really articulating and understanding that and applying it to myself. But the big picture, I think, is using that information to carve out a unique path for myself.
Final question. You ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
What is your definition of success?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think everybody should ask themselves that question. Like I said, having focus and having a goal in mind really helps navigate life, in my opinion. And for me, success looks like a fit body, a healthy home, an impactful career. So, a fit body, I want to make sure that I'm healthy. A healthy home means my relationships with, children, wife, parents, siblings, and even extended cousins, etc. Those relationships are strong, and those relationships are mended. And then when it comes to a career, that whatever I'm doing is impactful not only to me but to the rest of the world. I think that that's what success looks like to me. So really reflecting on the skills that I have personally, So whether that be technical acumen, whether that be relationship building or originating relationships, or sales, which was primarily my career. How do I use these skills to really have an impact and have a positive change on the world and the world after this as well? So for the children, for the grandchildren, and for the youth of the world for the rest of time.
Amazing. Is there anything else you want to say? Comments, concerns, questions, shout outs?
No, I think I covered the majority of what I wanted to talk about. I really just wanted to talk about and guide others to patience, guide others to forgiveness, and help people, like that concept of mercy.
Yeah.
So really just practice being merciful, whether that be to your friends, to your parents, to your spouses, to your children, whatever the case is. But just have that mercy and be open to forgiving, even if it's something that's really awful. And that was really the message that I wanted to bring. Yeah, like by no means am I a business mogul. By no means am I a success when it comes to being patient and being forgiving. We're all working towards it, but certainly I've had some success with it. And so based on the success that I've had with being merciful and being patient, I've shared my story, and I hope that can impact others and help them build their own.
Come on. Thank you for your time.
It was a pleasure. Thank you, Vincent.
All right. To those who have tuned in and stayed to the very end, we appreciate you for listening in today, and we thank you for your time. If you haven't already, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. And until then, my friends, take care.